Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a special guest with us, Don Avergleben. Don is CEO of International Tower Hill Mines. International Tower Hill can be traded as THM on the New York Stock Exchange, and it also can be traded as ITH on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Thanks, Don, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jeb. Glad to be with you this afternoon.
Don, give us an update on a status update on how the feasibility study is going for the Live and Good project.
Sure. We're quite happy to be on track with regard to the feasibility study. We have always said that we would have it out mid-2013 and that we had hoped to have all of our qualified persons under the 43101 certification process finished with their work by the end of June, and we think we're on schedule to do that. There are still numbers coming in, as you might guess, so we don't have the specifics at this point, so we can't talk about it publicly. But once it's certified, we'll draw some conclusions about when best to discuss it publicly. The one thing that we are involved in from a status perspective that might keep us from putting it out in the marketplace right away is that we are in discussions with various entities that might be potential strategic alliance partners, and they have confidentiality agreements, so we would typically discuss all of the detail with them first before we would be out there in the public domain. But it is our intention to eventually have the 43101 version of our feasibility study for the Live and Good project out in the public.
Don, you have experience both in managing a major gold company and now you're managing a junior company. We've seen an increase in M&A activity recently. The transaction value per ounce is much higher than what is International Tower Hill, what the gold per ounce is trading at right now is so undervalued. What do you think? Why is Tower Hill undervalued, and what do you think is going to what will be some catalyst to change the valuation?
Well, the most important thing at the moment, of course, is that the market sentiment for the junior mining industry is down across the board. And you can see this when people do put out positive information, like we hope to do with regard to our feasibility, that they don't really get much credit in the marketplace for it. And it's just one of those unfortunate down cycles. And having been in this business for over 30 years, I've seen 5 or 6 of these cycles. But in the valuation process, the entities that are out there looking to ask the question, is this a value-creating activity if they do a transaction with us, they look at some things that's slightly different than the market. But let's just stay on the market for a moment. Our price from the share standpoint is exacerbated negatively even more so because of 3 things. One, we've been doing this feasibility study now for over 18 months, and we're coming to the end. I'll come back to that in a second. 2, it is a project that is not going to be in production in the very near term. We still have several years of development and final permitting to draw a construction decision. And 3, we've told the world that we're looking for a strategic alliance partner because this is a large-scale project. When you have over 16 million ounces in measured and indicated and another more than 4 in inferred, that's a very, very large-scale project. Now let me reverse and say why we should be getting further value for our gold resource in the ground in the future. Number one is we will be putting out information about the feasibility. And once we show that it is viable in the sense of a rate of return on investment that makes sense for shareholders, then the project, even though it would be a large-scale project, has great benefit, and new value is brought to the share price by virtue of proving the viability of this known resource. Secondly, if we are successful, and we feel very confident right now that of the many entities that we're talking with that have these confidentiality agreements, if we find an arrangement that works well with one of those, and they take a look at the project and its multiple scenarios, and this is one of the major positives about this project, we do have multiple scenarios for how we could view this. But remember that the base case was a large-scale 100,000 ton per day milling operation with a add-on heap leach. That would be a fairly large scale, and most of the companies ask the question, is there anything smaller if we stay in this downturn in gold price? And the answer is yes. So secondarily, we'll bring value by having brought someone to the table who will join us and provide capital in the development stage and then share with us in the capital expenditures when we go to build it. And that's why we seek a partnership. The third thing, of course, is we live and work in an area that is, without question, the best geopolitical location in the United States. And I've certainly worked all over the world. This is the fourth project I've been blessed to work on in Alaska. I can tell you from personal experience dating back to 1990, it is a great place. Our location in Alaska is even better than most other locations in Alaska. We simply don't have any issues of negativity. There's no anti-group against our property. We have no Aboriginal or Native issues. We own the land. The things that go towards an infrastructure question are all very positive. So what we have to do is bring forward value to our shareholders by showing that we've de-risked the project at every possible technical detail. The feasibility does that, and you follow with detailed engineering to finalize what your OPEX costs will be, your overall rate of return, your decision about how many ounces per year would be produced, and therefore the rate of return on any given amount of investment. We'll look at all of those things happening in a relatively short period of time to bring value back to this project.
Don, you've been a CEO of a major producing gold company. When you're sitting on the other side, what attracts a potential partner to the Live and Good story?
Well, you're right, Jeb. I've been blessed to have worked for several mid-cap and major entities, and I've always been involved in the business development or corporate development side of reviewing potential junior mining companies and their assets for acquisition. Remember that the majority of the senior mining companies don't do a whole lot of exploration, and if they do, it's typically in brownfields around their own properties. So for them to have been active in a district like our Live and Good district in Fairbanks, it's just not very, it doesn't happen very often. One or two companies have spent much time there. So if I were on the other side, I'd be asking the all-important question of location, location, location. And I don't mean to be trite, that's an overused phrase, but when you have a 50 to 70 square mile piece of property and your 16 plus 4 million ounces sits on about 2 square miles of that, or 2 square, miles of that area, you understand the upside potential for this property. So when I would be in the other side looking, I'd ask, are there infrastructure issues that can be overcome? Well, in this case, the road goes right through it. The main highway's there. There's a workforce. There's electricity. There's water. The land is already secure. So you really begin to say the only infrastructure questions at that point are weather. Had they done this before? Well, yes. Fort Knox is just down the road and been doing that one since the mid-90s. And then you go solely to the question of, well, if that's the case, you've got this very large resource, but tell me, can we extend the mine life of this property? It could be anywhere from a 12 to a 24-year mine life, depending upon how we decide to go in terms of a scenario, production profile. But the next question will be, well, yeah, but is it open in directions? In this case, it is. And is it also providing similar topography and similar geologic opportunity? And the answer is clearly yes. We have 3 designated target areas that we have not been able to drill to the extent that we have drilled the existing Live and Good deposit, simply because once you have proven that you have 20 million ounces in total, M-I-N-I, then you must be able to prove you can get it out of the ground, and that's what our feasibility will do. But the attractiveness becomes the location of the property from an infrastructure standpoint, from a lack of any anti-mining sentiment, for not having any problems in the native community, for having an available source of power, for having the available source of labor. In this case, Fairbanks had been a mining district for a long time, and the Livengood district for 96 years. We have no shortage of mining talent there. And then lastly, but certainly as important to them, is do you have that exploration upside? Can we make this property last longer and take the initial capital that's invested and stretch it out over a longer mine life? And we are blessed to have a property that will do just that. So we know it's attractive for all of those reasons. The issue is always about what does it cost to build it, what is your rate of return, what is the gold grade, and we have multiple scenarios, including changing the head grade at the mill, to be able to answer those questions as a result of doing this feasibility work.
Well, Don, thanks so much for being here with us and giving us an update on the company. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeb. I appreciate all of your listeners and the people that follow you on the internet, because the market, in my opinion, is so downtrodden at the moment that people should be understanding gold will recover, and therefore junior mining companies that have been hit hard will be recovering well. We certainly hope to be in the forefront of those entities as we move forward on the Livengood project. Thanks, Jeb. I appreciate your time.